The energy in that studio shifted instantly, and no one was prepared for what exploded next. What happens when America's biggest pop sensation walks onto daytime television expecting a warm welcome, and instead finds herself cornered under studio lights that suddenly feel more like interrogation lamps? Before we step into that moment, make sure you subscribe to Talk Narrative, like this video, and drop a comment below, because what unfolded on that stage had the entire audience holding their breath. The applause inside the View was thunderous when Olivia Rodrigo stepped out. She wore a soft lavender dress, her signature vulnerability wrapped in polished confidence. At just 20-something, she had already become the voice of a generation. Heartbreak anthems, stadium tours, awards glittering behind her. But beneath the poise was someone still learning how to stand firm when challenged. Across the curved table sat the panel. Whoopi Goldberg steady and observant, Sunny Host composed and analytical, Sarah Haynes smiling warmly, and at the end, leaning slightly forward with that unmistakable glint in her eye, was Joy Behar. The conversation began lightly. Whoopi welcomed Olivia with a grin. "You've had an incredible year. Sold-out arenas, Grammy wins. Does it ever feel real?" Olivia laughed softly. "Honestly, no. Sometimes I still feel like I'm that girl in my bedroom writing songs about crushes." The audience melted. Applause rippled through the studio. Sunny pivoted gently. "Your music resonates because it's so raw. You're very open about heartbreak, betrayal, even anger. That vulnerability, it's powerful." Olivia nodded. "I think young people deserve to have their feelings taken seriously. We feel things deeply." There it was, the thesis of her career. But Joy shifted in her seat. "Well," Joy began, lips pursed in a half-smile. "Some people might say your generation feels everything deeply, maybe too deeply." The audience chuckled nervously. Olivia's smile flickered, but she held it. "I think every generation feels deeply. We just have different ways of expressing it." Joy tilted her head. "Sure, but when every breakup becomes a chart-topping revenge anthem, doesn't that send a message that it's okay to publicly shame your ex?" A few gasps fluttered across the audience. Whoopi's eyebrows lifted slightly. Sunny glanced sideways. Olivia inhaled slowly. "I don't shame anyone," she said carefully. "I write about my experience. That's what artists have done forever." Join back unfazed. "But your fans, they dissect lyrics. They attack people online. Do you feel responsible for that?" The temperature shifted. The lavender dress suddenly looked less soft under the glare of the lights. Olivia's fingers tightened subtly in her lap. "I can't control how people behave online," she replied. "I always encourage kindness." Joy didn't let up. "But you benefit from the drama, don't you? The speculation, the headlines." A murmur rolled through the crowd. Olivia blinked. The room felt smaller. For a split second, the polished pop star vanished and the young woman underneath surfaced. The one who wrote songs at 2 a.m. because it hurt too much to sleep. "I don't create music for headlines," she said, voice steady but softer. "I create music because I need to." Joy gave a small shrug. "Of course, but heartbreak has become branding." The word landed like a stone. Branding. Whoopi leaned forward slightly, sensing the shift. "Joy." But Olivia spoke before anyone could redirect. "Heartbreak isn't a brand," she said, eyes bright now, not with anger, but something more fragile. "It's human." Silence. The audience, once buzzing, now sat suspended between admiration and discomfort. Joy's tone sharpened. "But you've built an empire on it." The word empire echoed. Olivia's jaw tightened. "I built a career on honesty." "And honesty sells," Joy replied quickly. Sunny interjected gently. "Joy, artists writing about personal experience isn't new. Think of every singer-songwriter in history." Joy waved a hand dismissively. "I'm not saying she can't write about it. I'm saying there's a responsibility when millions of teenagers hang on to your every word." Olivia's heartbeat seemed almost audible. She looked at the audience, faces filled with support, some teary-eyed. Young girls clutching posters, parents nodding along. "I tell them it's okay to feel," she said. "I tell them it's okay to cry, to be angry, to process things instead of pretending they don't hurt." Her voice wavered slightly. And I also tell them to be kind. Joy crossed her arms lightly. But do you ever worry you're encouraging a victim mindset that every bad date becomes trauma? A sharp intake of breath rippled through the studio. Whoopi finally stepped in. All right, let's. Olivia's composure cracked. Not explosively, but emotionally. My generation isn't weak, she said more firmly now. We talk about our feelings because for a long time people didn't. That doesn't make us dramatic. It makes us aware. The applause came fast and loud. Joy raised an eyebrow. No one said weak. It's implied, Olivia replied quietly. The exchange hung heavy. This wasn't playful banter anymore. It wasn't promotional fluff. It was generational tension, raw and unfiltered. Joy leaned forward again, voice calm, but pointed. When I was your age, we wrote in diaries. We didn't monetize our pain. The audience reacted, some clapping, some murmuring in disagreement. Olivia swallowed. When you were my age, you didn't have social media. You didn't have millions of strangers analyzing your every move. We live in a different world. Sunny nodded slowly. Joy counted. Exactly. So maybe there should be thicker skin. There it was, the phrase that would later dominate headlines. Olivia's eyes shimmered. Not from defeat, but from the exhaustion of constantly defending softness in a world that rewards hardness. Thick skin doesn't mean you don't feel, she said, barely above a whisper. It means you survive feeling. The audience erupted. Whoopi placed a calming hand on the table. Okay, let's breathe. But the tension had already cemented itself into something unforgettable. The camera zoomed in on Olivia's face, vulnerable, resolute. On Joy's expression, unyielding, skeptical. On the crowd, divided but captivated. This was no longer just an interview. It was a collision. And as the segment cut to commercial, whispers filled the studio. Producers huddled. Phones in the audience lit up, tweets already forming. Under the bright lights of daytime television, a young pop icon had just been tested. Not on her chart numbers, not on her fashion, but on the legitimacy of her feelings. And the real storm. It was only beginning. The applause was still echoing faintly as the cameras cut to commercial, but the energy in the studio had shifted into something electric, tight, unpredictable. Olivia Rodrigo didn't move right away. She kept her posture straight, hands folded neatly in her lap, but her shoulders had risen just slightly, the way they do when someone is bracing themselves. The studio audience buzzed in low whispers. A few young fans near the front row wiped their eyes. Across the table, Joy Behar leaned back in her chair, expression unreadable, tapping her index finger lightly against a stack of cue cards. A producer hurried toward Whoopi Goldberg, whispering something urgently. Whoopi nodded once, calm as ever, then glanced toward Olivia with a look that felt almost maternal. When the red light flickered back on, the familiar theme music swelled again. Smiles returned to faces, but they were thinner now. Tighter. And we're back, Whoopi said smoothly, her voice carrying that steady authority. We're here with Olivia Rodrigo, whose new tour is breaking records. Applause rose again, though this time it carried an undercurrent of protectiveness. Sour Haynes leaned forward, eager to lighten the air. Olivia, your fans connect with you in such a deep way. I've seen videos of them singing every word back to you. What does that feel like? Olivia's smile returned, though it was gentler now. It's overwhelming in the best way. When thousands of people sing lyrics that you wrote alone in your bedroom, it makes you feel less alone. The audience responded warmly. Joy tilted her head. Less alone, she repeated. But do you ever worry that by sharing so much you lose something personal? That everything becomes content? The question sounded softer than before, but it carried the same edge. Olivia inhaled slowly. I choose what I share. Not everything is public. Joy nodded. But enough is your breakups, your heartbreak, your anger, it's all very visible. Sunny Host stepped in gently. Joy, artists have always drawn from personal lives. That's not new. I'm not disputing that, Joy replied. I'm questioning whether the scale changes the responsibility. Olivia's gaze sharpened slightly. Responsibility to who? To young girls who think every painful moment deserves an audience, Joy said. Who might confuse processing feelings with broadcasting them. A murmur ran through the crowd again. Olivia's fingers tightened together. I don't tell anyone they need an audience, she said carefully. I tell them they are allowed to feel. There's a difference. Joy leaned forward. But there's power in your words. Power shapes culture, and silence shapes culture too, Olivia replied quietly. That landed. The audience reacted with a low, approving hum. Joy's expression flickered for just a second, almost impressed. You articulate, she admitted. But I wonder if sometimes pain becomes performance. The phrase hung in the air like smoke. Olivia blinked, caught off guard. Performance. Yes, Joy continued. There's a fine line between authenticity and packaging emotion for profit. The studio felt colder. Whoopi shifted slightly in her chair. Let's not imply she's manufacturing her feelings. I'm not implying, Joyce said calmly. I'm asking. Olivia's composure wavered, not in weakness, but in frustration. I've cried on my bathroom floor, she said, voice steady, but charged. I felt heartbreak so intense I couldn't eat. That's not packaging. That's real. The audience applauded loudly now. Joy didn't clap. And when you turn that into a hit song, Joy pressed. Does it still belong to you? Olivia hesitated. That question was different. It becomes ours, she said finally. It becomes something shared. Sunny smiled softly. That's the power of art. Joy crossed her legs. Or the power of narrative control. The words sliced sharper this time. Olivia's eyes flashed. What narrative am I controlling? She asked. The one where you're always the wronged party. Joy replied evenly. A collective gasp rippled through the studio. Saw's mouth fell open slightly. Sunny stiffened. Hoopsie's gaze snapped toward Joy. Olivia's face drained of color for half a second before resolve filled the space. You think I paint myself as a victim, she said slowly. I think, Joy answered, that sometimes your lyrics leave very little room for accountability. Silence. It was the kind of silence that feels loud. Olivia leaned forward now, mirroring Joy's posture. The lavender fabric caught the studio lights almost glowing. I've never claimed to be perfect, she said. But I won't apologize for writing about how something made me feel. Joy's voice softened, but only slightly. Feelings can distort facts, and facts can ignore feelings, Olivia shot back. The audience erupted, half cheering, half stunned. Whoopi raised a hand. All right, let's remember. We're having a conversation, not a courtroom trial. But the tension refused to dissolve. Joy looked at Olivia with something more complex now. Not just skepticism, but generational disbelief. When I was younger, Joy began. We didn't center ourselves in every story. Olivia didn't miss a beat. Maybe you should have. The crowd exploded. Even Sunny couldn't hide her reaction. A quick surprised smile before she regained composure. Joy's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me. I mean, Olivia clarified, voice shaking slightly but holding firm. Maybe your generation was taught to shrink, to swallow things. Ours is trying not to. The applause was thunderous now. Joy's lips pressed into a thin line. There's strength in restraint. There's strength in vulnerability, Olivia replied. The clash wasn't loud. It wasn't screaming. It was sharper than that. Two philosophies colliding under fluorescent lights. Whoopi exhaled slowly. Okay, let's zoom out for a second. But the emotional temperature had already reached a boiling point. Joy leaned back, folding her arms again. I just hope your fans learn resilience, not just relatability. Olivia's eyes glistened, not from hurt alone, but from the weight of being misunderstood. Resilience, she said softly, isn't pretending you're fine. It's surviving what hurt you. The studio fell silent again, this time not tense, but reflective. Even Joy paused for a split second. Something shifted behind her expression, an acknowledgement maybe that this wasn't just a pop star defending her brand. This was a young woman defending her right to feel without being dismissed. But live television doesn't linger in nuance for long. A producer signaled from off stage. Whoopi glanced toward the camera. We're going to take another quick break as the theme music swelled once more. The audience buzzed louder than before. Phones were out again. Tweets were flying. Clips were already being uploaded. Olivia leaned back in her chair, blinking rapidly as if steadying herself. Sar reached across the table briefly, giving her a supportive nod. Joy adjusted her glasses, gaze forward. The conversation had moved beyond music now. It wasn't about chart positions or Toretes. It was about whether emotion is strength or spectacle. And when the show returned from break, there was a feeling in the room that this wasn't going to cool down. It was going to crack open. When the show returned from commercial again, the applause sounded different. It wasn't just welcoming anymore. It was charged. The cameras found Olivia Rodrigo's face first. She had composed herself, chin lifted slightly, shoulders squared, but her eyes still carried the shimmer of someone who had just fought to keep their footing on live television. Whoopi Goldberg leaned forward, her tone measured. We're having a real conversation here, and that's okay. That's what this table is for. The audience clapped softly. Joy Behar gave a small nod, but her gaze stayed fixed on Olivia. Not hostile, not apologetic, just unwavering. Sunny hosting jumped in carefully. Olivia, you've spoken before about how therapy has helped you process fame and heartbreak. Do you think some of this tension comes from the fact that older generations weren't encouraged to talk openly about mental health? The question felt like a bridge. Olivia nodded. Absolutely. I think therapy gave me language for things I didn't understand before. And when you have language, you can heal. Joy tilted her head. Or you can overanalyze. A ripple of laughter moved through parts of the audience, uneasy, unsure which side to land on. Olivia didn't laugh. I don't think understanding yourself is overanalyzing, she replied. I think it's growing. Joy leaned forward again. But does everything need to be dissected publicly? Every floor, every fight. Olivia met her gaze. Not everything is public. You're seeing a fraction. Joy's voice sharpened slightly. A very profitable fraction. There it was again. The suggestion that emotion and success couldn't coexist without manipulation. Olivia exhaled slowly, and for the first time since the interview began, her restraint thinned. Why is it hard to believe that I can be successful and sincere? She asked. The audience murmured in agreement. Joy's lips pressed together briefly. It's not hard to believe. It's just Ray. The statement hung in the air. Sour Haynes leaned in gently. Joy, are you saying you don't believe her? Joy didn't hesitate. I'm saying fame changes people. It changes perspective. And sometimes what starts as raw becomes curated. Olivia's heartbeat felt visible now, rising in her throat, echoing in the silence between words. Do you think I sit in a boardroom planning my heartbreak? She asked, incredulous but controlled. Joy shrugged slightly. I think there's a team around you that understands the power of narrative. Sunny interjected more firmly this time. Joy, every public figure has a team. That doesn't negate authenticity. But Olivia didn't need rescuing. She leaned forward, elbows resting lightly on the table now longer folded inward. I started writing songs before I had a team, she said. Before awards, before arenas, before headlines, I wrote because it was the only way I knew how to survive my feelings. Her voice trembled, not dramatically, but honestly. The audience erupted into applause. Joy waited until the noise faded. And now, she asked. The question was quieter, more piercing. Olivia paused. Now, she said slowly. I still write for the same reason. The scale changed. The intention didn't. Joy stuttered her carefully. And if Tomorrow Heartbreak stopped selling, Joy asked. Olivia didn't flinch. I'd still write. That answer shifted something. Even Whoopi's expression softened. But Joy wasn't done. There's something else, she said, folding her hands on the table. You've become a symbol. Young women look at you and see validation. That's powerful. But sometimes validation without challenge creates fragility. A collective murmur rolled through the studio. Olivia's jaw tightened again. Why do you equate validation with fragility? She asked. Because constant reassurance can make criticism feel like an attack, Joy replied. And there it was, The heart of it. Olivia's eyes flickered. Not with hurt this time, but realization. This isn't about my music, she said quietly. It's about how you see my generation. The audience clapped loudly. Joy didn't deny it. I think your generation is incredibly expressive, Joy said. But I worry it mistakes expression for endurance. The room went still. Olivia leaned back slightly, absorbing that. Endurance doesn't look the same for everyone, she said. For some people, endurance is silence. For others, it's speaking up. Joy's voice softened, almost reflective. And what happens when speaking up becomes noise? The tension sharpened again. It's only noise if you're not listening, Olivia replied. The audience gasped, then applauded. Whoopi raised her eyebrows. Okay, now, she muttered, half amused, half stunned. Joy exhaled through her nose, a quick smile flickering despite herself. You've got comebacks. I'm not trying to have comebacks, Olivia said, her voice cracking slightly now. I'm trying to explain that feeling deeply isn't a flaw. That crack in her voice changed everything. The studio shifted from combative to compassionate in an instant. Sunny reached out, her tone warm. No one here thinks feeling is a flaw. Joy hesitated. And in that hesitation, something vulnerable surfaced. When I was younger, Joy said slowly, no one asked how we felt. We just moved on. The edge in her voice dulled for the first time. Olivia's expression softened. That sounds lonely, she said. The audience went silent. Joy blinked, clearly not expecting that response. It wasn't lonely, Joy replied quickly, but without conviction. It was practical. Olivia nodded gently. Maybe both. The room felt smaller now, but not hostile. Intimate. Whoopi leaned back, watching the exchange like a referee who sensed the fight turning into something else entirely. Joy's fingers tapped lightly against the table again, but slower now. You think we did it wrong, Joy said. I think you did what you had to, Olivia replied. And we're doing what we have to. There was no applause this time, just stillness. The cameras captured the moment, the generational standoff dissolving into something more complicated. But live television thrives on friction. And just when it seemed like the conversation might settle into understanding, Joy asked one final question. Quiet, deliberate. Do you ever worry, she said, that one day the world won't care about your feelings anymore? The question wasn't cruel. It was existential. Olivia didn't answer right away. She looked out at the audience, at the young faces who saw themselves in her, at the older faces who saw something unfamiliar. Then she looked back at Joy. I don't need the whole world to care, she said softly. Just the people who feel less alone because I said something out loud. The applause that followed wasn't explosive. It was emotional. Some people stood. Joy sat still, absorbing the answer. The red light on the camera glowed brighter than ever. This wasn't just an interview anymore. It was a generational mirror held up under unforgiving lights. And neither woman was stepping away from it. Not yet. The applause faded slowly, but the emotion in the room didn't. It lingered, thick, complicated, almost fragile. Olivia Rodrigo sat still, her answer still echoing in the air. I don't need the whole world to care. Just the people who feel less alone. For a brief moment, even Joy Behar didn't interrupt. Whoopi Goldberg cleared her throat gently. The seasoned host sensing both the depth and the danger of what had just unfolded. That's a powerful thing, she said calmly, making people feel less alone. The audience murmured in agreement. But live television doesn't pause for reflection for long. Joy adjusted in her seat, leaning forward again, not aggressive this time, but intent. Let me ask you something else, she said, her voice quieter, almost measured. You talk about making people feel less alone. But what happens when they start living through you instead of living for themselves? The shift was subtle but sharp. Olivia blinked. That's not what I want, she said immediately. But it happens, Joy replied. Fandom can blur lines. People project. They attach. They defend you like they know you personally. Sunny host nodded slightly. Parasocial relationships are real. Olivia's shoulders straightened again. I can't control how someone connects to my music, she said. I can only control my intention. Joy tilted her head. And your intention is to tell the truth, Olivia answered. As honestly as I can. Joy's gaze sharpened. Even when that truth hurts other people. The room went still again. There it was, that undercurrent that had been circling all along. Olivia inhaled slowly. I don't name names. You don't have to, Joy countered. The internet does it for you. A murmur spread across the audience. Sour Haynes stepped in gently. But that's not unique to Olivia. That's culture now. Joy didn't look away from Olivia. Culture has consequences. Olivia's composure flickered. Not with anger this time, but fatigue. You keep talking like I engineered this system, she said softly. I was 17 when my first album came out. The reminder hit hard. 17. The audience reacted audibly. Soft gasps, a few whispers. Joy paused for half a second. And now you're older, more powerful, and more aware, Olivia replied. Which is why I talk about boundaries, which is why I tell fans not to attack anyone. Joy's expression remained firm. But do they listen? Olivia hesitated. That hesitation said more than words could. Not always, she admitted. Joy leaned back slightly. So, doesn't that trouble you? Of course it does, Olivia said, emotion rising again. You think I want anyone to get hate because of me? Her voice cracked on the last word. The audience shifted, some clapping in support, others visibly moved. Whoopi stepped in gently. Nobody's accusing you of wanting that. But it feels like I'm being accused of something, Olivia said, the frustration finally surfacing fully. Like my feelings are dangerous. Like my honesty is reckless. Joy's tone softened, but not entirely. Honesty can be reckless, and silence can be suffocating, Olivia shot back. The applause came faster this time, less hesitant, more decisive. Joy let the noise pass before responding. You're very certain, she said. Olivia met her gaze directly. I have to be. There was steel in her now. The vulnerability was still there, but it was layered with resolve. Joy folded her hands together. I just wonder what happens when the heartbreak stops. Olivia frowned slightly. What do you mean? You've built your identity around emotional intensity, Joy said. What happens when you fall in love and stay there? When there's no drama to write about? A ripple of laughter broke out, but it felt thin. Olivia's lips curved into the faintest smile. Then I'll write about that. Joy raised an eyebrow. Happy songs don't trend the same. The implication was clear. Olivia shook her head slightly. You really think I choose emotions based on market research? I think you live in a machine that rewards certain emotions. Joy replied evenly. Sunny interjected again. But that machine existed before Olivia. Tabloids, gossip columns. It's not new. Joy nodded. True, but social media amplified it. And she's one of its biggest stars. Olivia's breathing steadied. You keep saying that like it's something I chased, she said. Fame happened because people connected, not because I plotted it. Joy's eyes narrowed, not unkindly, but skeptically. No part of you enjoys the power. The question felt personal. Olivia didn't answer immediately. The studio lights hummed faintly overhead. I enjoy the platform, she said finally. I enjoy being able to advocate for things I care about. I enjoy making art and the influence. Joy pressed. Olivia held her gaze. Influence is responsibility, not a trophy. The audience applauded again, louder this time. Joy's lips pressed together, but something in her expression had shifted. Less combative, more contemplative. Do you ever miss anonymity? Joy asked quietly. The question wasn't sharp. It was human. Olivia's face softened instantly. All the time, she admitted. Silence fell across the studio. I miss going to a coffee shop without someone filming me, she continued. I miss making mistakes without headlines. Joy watched her closely. And yet, Joy said, you keep writing about those mistakes because if I don't, Olivia replied, voice steady but emotional. Someone else will tell the story for me. That line landed hard. Even Joy didn't respond right away. Whoopi leaned back slightly, nodding to herself. Joy finally exhaled. So, this is control. No, Olivia said gently. It's agency. The word hung between them. Agency. The audience clapped slower, thoughtful. Joy tapped her fingers lightly against the table again, studying Olivia as if reassessing something she had assumed from the start. You're stronger than I expected, Joy said. It wasn't a compliment wrapped in sarcasm. It was genuine surprise. Olivia didn't smile. I shouldn't have to prove that, she replied. The room erupted. Joy absorbed the reaction, then nodded slowly. Maybe you're right, she said. The words were small, but they carried weight. For the first time since the segment began, the clash didn't feel like a battle. It felt like a crack in a wall that had stood for decades between generations. But cracks don't erase tension, they reveal it. And as the final minutes of the segment ticked down, the audience sensed something bigger than a celebrity interview had just unfolded. This wasn't about chart toppers. It wasn't about branding. It wasn't even about heartbreak. It was about whether emotional honesty is strength or indulgence. And neither woman had fully surrendered her stance. As the cameras pulled back slightly, Whoopi glanced toward the clock. All right, she said gently. We're almost out of time. But everyone in that studio knew. Time wasn't the only thing running out. The internet was already waiting. The final seconds of the segment felt heavier than anything that had come before it. Whoopi Goldberg glanced toward the camera, her voice steady but softer than usual. Olivia Rodrigo, thank you for being here. This was a conversation. The audience let out a mix of laughter and applause, relieved, emotional, still buzzing. Olivia Rodrigo nodded, offering a small smile. Thank you for having me. Joy Behar looked at her for a long moment before speaking. I respect that you stayed in it, she said plainly. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't an attack either. Olivia met her eyes. I respect that you asked. And with that, the cameras cut wide. Theme music swelled. Applause rose. The red light blinked off, but the tension didn't disappear with it. As soon as the broadcast ended, the studio erupted, not in chaos, but in lay emotion. Some audience members stood immediately clapping for Olivia. A few older attendees nodded thoughtfully toward Joy. The generational divide wasn't hostile. It was visible. Producers rushed forward. Stage managers signaled transitions. Makeup artists hovered. Olivia exhaled for what felt like the first time in an hour. Sarah Haynes reached over and squeezed her hand. You handled that beautifully, she whispered. Sunny host leaned in as well. You were articulate, strong. Joy adjusted her glasses and gathered her cards. For a second, she hesitated, then looked directly at Olivia again. I'll be all right, Joy said quietly. Not dismissive, not sarcastic, just factual. Olivia's expression softened. So will you? It was subtle, but it mattered. Behind the scenes, phones were already lighting up. Clips from The View were spreading across social media at lightning speed. The moment where Olivia said, maybe you should have, had already been reposted thousands of times. The line, it's only noise if you're not listening, was trending. So was, I shouldn't have to prove that. Within an hour, hashtags bearing Olivia Rodrigo's name dominated timelines. Comment sections exploded. Olivia ate that up. Joy was out of line. Finally, someone said it about Gen Z. Joy asked the real questions. News outlets began publishing think pieces before the afternoon ended. Headlines framed it as a generational showdown. Some praised Olivia's emotional intelligence. Others defended Joy's skepticism, arguing that fame demands scrutiny. Clips looped endlessly. Zoomed-in facial expressions, slow-motion reactions. Audience gasps turned into dramatic sound bites. But something deeper was happening beneath the noise. Young fans posted videos crying, not because Olivia had been attacked, but because she hadn't backed down. Because she defended vulnerability without apologizing for it. Older viewers posted reflections about how differently they were raised, how they were taught to suppress rather than express. The clash had cracked open a cultural conversation that had been simmering for years. Backstage, Olivia finally stepped into her dressing room. The door shut behind her with a quiet click. Silence, No applause, no cameras, no pointed questions, just a reflection in the mirror. For a moment, the confident artist faded, and the young woman underneath surfaced again. Her hands trembled slightly as the adrenaline drained from her system. Her phone buzzed non-stop. Messages from friends, from her team, from other artists. One text simply read, "You were brave." She stared at it for a long moment. Brave. Was that what it was? Or was it just survival? Across the studio, Joy sat in her own dressing room, scrolling through reactions. Some praised her for challenging a pop icon. Others accused her of belittling a young woman's emotions. She exhaled slowly. Joy had built her career on sharp questions, on pushing back, on refusing to soften for comfort. But something about Olivia's response that sounds lonely echoed in her mind. Lonely. Joy set her phone down. Live television thrives on sparks. But sparks sometimes reveal more than intended. By evening, the clip had crossed millions of views. Cable news panels debated it. Radio hosts replayed it. Cultural commentators dissected every pause, every raised eyebrow, every crack in Olivia's voice. Some called it a clash. Others called it a moment. But for those who watched it live, it felt like something else entirely. It felt human. Not a pop star versus a host. Not Gen Z versus boomers. Just two women shaped by different eras trying to define strength in front of millions of people. Later that night, Olivia posted a simple message on her social media. Feeling deeply is not weakness. No shade, no mention of names, just a statement. The comments flooded instantly. Supportive, emotional, grateful. Joy didn't respond publicly. She didn't need to. The conversation had already escaped the studio walls. And that's the thing about moments like this. They don't end when the cameras cut. They ripple. They spark debates at dinner tables, in group chats, in classrooms, in workplaces. They force people to ask uncomfortable questions. Is vulnerability courage? Is restraint strength? Can both exist without canceling each other out? The clash on that stage wasn't explosive in volume. It was explosive in meaning, and in the days that followed, both women continued their work. Olivia returned to rehearsals, to songwriting sessions, to arenas filled with fans singing lyrics at the top of their lungs. But something had shifted. There was a new steadiness in her interviews, a sharper clarity in her words. Joy returned to the table the next morning, still witty, still direct, but perhaps a touch more reflective when the topic of younger generations arose. Neither apologized. Neither surrendered their philosophy. But both had been seen fully. And maybe that was the point. Because sometimes the most powerful clashes aren't about who wins. They are about who listens. Now we want to hear from you. Was Joy asking necessary questions about fame and responsibility? Or did Olivia prove that vulnerability deserves respect, not skepticism? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going. And if you want more explosive, emotional behind-the-scenes breakdowns of the moments that shake daytime television, make sure you subscribe to hit that like button. Because when the lights turn on and the cameras roll, you never know who will be tested.